It is episode 119 of Decoding Fox News, and I'm your host, Juliet Jeske. Each week I watch and analyze a whole heck of a lot of Fox News and then break it down. This past week it was 15 hours of Fox News. I watch all the Fox News you'd never want to. Let's get into it. Migrant crime horror shows and Biden cheap fakes. Now I got to explain this clip before I play it. On Thursday, Fox News on Fox and Friends came out with a poll. This was an actual Fox News poll that showed Biden edging out over Trump by just 2 points in a national poll. And they made a big deal out of it, sort of. They mentioned it multiple times in the first hour. Same night, Sean Hannity didn't mention it at all, whipped out another swing state poll and focused on that instead. And what I did in this clip is I go back and forth between Hannity and Fox and Friends, Hannity and Fox and Friends. Two realities, same network.
Fox News polls show it's neck and neck with Biden and Trump, but within the margin of error, exclamation point.
In Arizona, Donald Trump is up by 4. In Georgia, Donald Trump is also up by 4. In Wisconsin, Trump is up by 3.
News polls show a shift in the race for the first time this year, and this is big.
In Nevada, Trump is up by 3 again. In Pennsylvania, he's up by 2. In Michigan, he's up by 1. And in the traditionally very, very blue state of Minnesota, Trump and Biden are tied, 45-45.
And for the first time since October, brand new Fox News polls show President Biden leading Trump by 2 points in a head-to-head matchup, but that is within the margin of error.
In other words, according to a pretty reputable poll, Trump is ahead in every single battleground state and tied in Minnesota. Add in 2 recent polls from Virginia showing a dead-even race in the Commonwealth. And pretty good news for Donald Trump today.
Say they're voting for Trump. 95% of Democrats say they're voting for Joe Biden, according to this Fox News poll. So it's really up to the independents and undecided.
It is, and the independents, I think, are breaking for Joe by, I think, 9 points. Joe is up by 9 with independents in the Fox poll.
And that's what to keep you.
One other Trump-Biden poll I want to show you is head-to-head registered voters right now. Joe Biden is just 2 points above. He's right at 50%, and Donald Trump is at 48%. This is the first time this year we have seen Biden in the lead. What's up with that, Bill?
So again, that is a Fox News poll showing Joe Biden winning by 2 points. 2 points. Now that is in the margin of error. Brian Kilmeade is correct, but it's still exciting because it's a Fox News poll. Fox News poll, Fox News poll. I just want to say that over and over again. But I did find it hilarious that Sean Hannity was like on a totally different page. He's just like, I'm not even going to look at that. The 5, by the way, didn't mention it at all. Didn't mention it at all. They were talking about other things, doing their usual shtick, but they didn't mention the poll. Fox and Friends mentioned it several times in the first hour, at least 4 or 5 times. And then Hannity was like, I have this other poll, haha. Although 4 points, 3 points, also close to the margin of error, depending on the poll. So you're talking about stuff that you're talking about like slivers. And we are still months ahead of the election. A lot of things could change. A lot of things will change. People tend to not be paying attention right now. This is a completely bizarro election in that we've never had the nominees picked this early, and we've never had a president who just lost decide he was going to run again with a cult following. We are in uncharted territory. Who, by the way, cult following, but who, by the way, was never widely popular with the American public. You look at his approval ratings, they were not good his entire presidency. He just had his cult following, and that was it. So last week, Fox News featured several stories that involved undocumented immigrants allegedly committing horrific crimes against women, while the network completely ignored a Supreme Court ruling that will help protect victims of domestic violence. The Supreme Court ruling involved upholding a law that removes gun rights from domestic violence abusers. The optics of a conservative court restricting gun rights from American citizens didn't meld well with the narrative of invading criminals hell-bent on raping and killing women, so Fox News just didn't mention it. When Fox News wasn't trying to terrify its audience about criminal migrants, it recycled the same deceptively cropped media clips of Joe Biden to make him look old and feeble. The network also promoted Donald J. Trump as a savior who would solve all the nation's problems with a few executive orders and some secret deals he couldn't reveal the specifics of until he was elected. Anyone watching Fox News exclusively last week would have missed out on stories about statewide marijuana pardons in Maryland, extreme flooding in China, and updates to the Israel-Hamas war and the war in Ukraine. Shows I covered on Fox, Fox and Friends, The Five, and Hannity. And I just played the Battle of the Polls, which was pretty humorous because Hannity's just like hell, but he's just holding on. Like, Trump's going to win. I'm going to deny reality. I'm going to deny reality. Basically what's going on there. So only undocumented immigrants commit crimes on Fox News. So starting on Monday, and this is going to be kind of brutal to go through these clips, Fox News featured a story about Rachel Morin, a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was brutally murdered, allegedly by an undocumented immigrant in Maryland while out hiking. Although she was killed back in August of 2023, the suspect in her murder was just apprehended in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so on Monday on The Five, Martha McCallum started an extended segment about the crime.
So tough story. Another shocking migrant crime shaking the nation. Tulsa police arresting an illegal immigrant who entered the country under Biden's watch and charging him with the horrific and brutal murder of a Maryland mom of 5 children. Rachel Morin, we now know, was raped, attacked, and killed while she was hiking on a popular route that she had hiked on her whole life in Maryland last August. So here we go again, Judge. Kate Steinle, Laken Riley, and now Rachel Morin, who should be alive today if we had a system that worked.
So Kate Steinle was killed by an undocumented immigrant in 2015. So they're going all the way back. She went all the way back to 2015 in San Francisco, California. Jose Ines Garcia Zarate, the man charged with killing her, was ultimately acquitted of murder and involuntary manslaughter charges, as well as assault with a deadly weapon. His defense attorney argued her death was accidental, and the jury convicted him of only felony gun charges. Donald J. Trump championed her case and called the verdict a travesty of justice, and he would talk about her a lot during his rallies. Laken Riley was a 22-year-old nursing student who was killed by an undocumented immigrant while out for a jog at the University of Georgia on February 22, 2024. Fox News and other right-wing media outlets featured Riley's murder prominently for weeks. President Biden was criticized for mispronouncing her name during his State of the Union address. So what McCallum did there is she talked about the recent crime. It's actually from last year, but they just found her alleged killer, Rachel Morin, and then she worked in a crime from 2015 and a crime from February. So we're moving on to the next day. Now we're going on to Tuesday. This is The Five. This is Sandra Smith. She was substitute co-hosting. She starts the segment with another crime allegedly committed by a migrant.
But critics argue it's ill-timed amid America's surge in migrant violence. Brand new video of police perp walking a suspect, an Ecuadorian migrant, who is charged with the rape, sexual abuse, and kidnapping of a 13-year-old girl here in New York City.
So Christian Giovanni Inga Landi, a 25-year-old Ecuadorian migrant who entered the U.S. illegally in June 2021, was picked up after people in the neighborhood where the crime occurred recognized him from a photo and video released by law enforcement, according to the police department. So that's crime number 2. And on Wednesday, Judge Jeanine Pirro also brings up this same case.
The media is downplaying horrific migrant crimes like the illegal immigrant monster who raped a 13-year-old girl in a New York City park.
So the next morning on Fox and Friends, Steve Doocy brought up another crime. So this is a new crime.
This morning, another absolutely tragic consequence of our current immigration laws.
Yep, 2 Venezuelan nationals who crossed the border illegally are now charged with the murder of a 12-year-old Texas girl.
My goodness, they say she was abducted, strangled, and killed.
Then on Friday on Hannity, Sean Hannity brought up that crime and also included information about another one.
Oh, what a week this has been. Sad in so many ways. The deadly consequences of Joe Biden's border crisis are being felt all across the country. 2 illegals arrested for the brutal murder of a 12-year-old girl in Texas, one of which was released into the U.S. just weeks prior after illegally crossing into this country. Meanwhile, 5 illegals in Missouri, hundreds of miles from the border, charged with the kidnapping of a 14-year-old girl that apparently they wanted to traffic.
So all of these crimes are absolutely horrifying. But I doubt Fox News would have featured them as prominently if the alleged attackers weren't undocumented immigrants. Attacks like these are quite rare, as most crime victims know their attackers regardless of gender. So that's men and women. In both cases, you tend to know the person who attacks you. Undocumented immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than American citizens. And there's several studies on that, not just one. It's all over the place. Universities have done it. All kinds of groups that study crime have done it, and they keep finding the same trend. Migration at the southern border has actually decreased in recent months, and crime across the United States has also dramatically declined since a peak during the pandemic. But a Fox viewer would most likely think that both have increased based on how the network covers crime and the border crisis. In a country with a population of 330 million, it doesn't take much to find absolutely terrifying crime stories, even though, according to the Uniform Crime Report, the murder rate fell by 26.4%, reported rapes decreased by 25.7%, robberies fell by 17.8%, aggravated assault fell by 12.5%, and the overall violent crime rate went down by 15.2% in the first 3 months of 2024 compared to the same period last year. According to data collected by the FBI, approximately 3 women are murdered every day in the United States. Most of their stories don't make national news, much less a featured segment repeated on the highest rated cable news channel. On the shows I covered, no one on Fox News mentioned that the Supreme Court upheld a ban on access to firearms for domestic abusers last week. 8 of the 9 justices voted to reject a challenge to Section 922G8 of the Violence Against Women Act. As Fox News host claimed to care about the safety of women, the network ignored a landmark case that will help keep firearms out of the hands of people who abuse their partners. And according to data by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, in the case of female murder and manslaughter victims, 76% of women or girls are killed by someone they know, and 34% were killed by an intimate partner. By comparison, only about 12% of women or girls are killed by a stranger. It's difficult for the Biden campaign to navigate stories about Americans brutalized by undocumented immigrants. Even though migrants are less likely to commit crimes, these women wouldn't have been murdered and raped if these men were not in this country. But there's also no guarantee that these men wouldn't have gotten into the country if Trump was president. Despite his many lies about his record on the border during his administration, he never came close to completely staving off illegal border crossings. Border crossings dramatically increased in 2019, only to drop off due to the pandemic. So this is not exactly a new tactic, as it's been used for decades by politicians and propagandists. They'll say the incumbent is weak on crime, or in this case, weak on the border. Find a crime, in this case committed by a migrant, pin the crime onto the incumbent. Now, of course, Fox will find any crime they possibly can, and they'll repeat this tactic until the night before the election. And if Trump wins, suddenly they'll forget that these sorts of crimes happen, or they'll somehow try to twist it to blame Joe Biden. This is what they're going to do. And it's very difficult for the Biden campaign to navigate this, because nobody wants to diminish these women or what happened to them, or minimize these horrific crimes. So this is tricky, and it's very difficult to cover, because this was like, if you notice, I purposely picked a clip from every single day, because this story was a major story every single day, even though the specific crimes kept changing. And it's horrible, because again, I can think of any number of cases that I've read in the past few months where a husband killed his wife, it's not going to get featured on Fox News. No, because why? They can't exploit that for anything. But if it's a migrant that kills a woman, that will get exploited. And I always worry about the families because I don't know, do they fare better when their loved one gets publicity like this? In some ways, I think it would probably make them feel better about, like, people care about my daughter, people care about my wife, she lives on, her memory lives on. But I also have to think that it has to be incredibly painful to see their photo, to get requests for interviews, to constantly have it dredged up over and over and over again and have it be this like major national story. I can't imagine that can be easy. And I know in the case of Laken Riley, her father actually did speak out and say it was too much. So this is what we're dealing with. You know, I had to make that clip last night because I didn't have clips from it. And I thought I have to include this because it was such a huge part of last week's coverage that to not include it would not be showing you what Fox is doing. And if you have an uncle or a friend that's obsessed with Fox, they're talking about what they would call migrant crime, even though this is a bit manufactured, as migrants don't commit crime as high as Americans do, and crime overall is down, as is illegal immigration. But it's like Fox just creates reality and sticks with it. Friday on Fox and Friends, Ansley Einhart brought up a story about an alleged migrant criminal who was cleared of any wrongdoing, but I don't know if she knew that. So here's the clip. It's very short.
Here?
Yeah.
Penny. Yeah.
Penny, I'm sorry, bro.
And then the illegals are behind bars for a second. They come out. They flip off the cameras after they beat up cops.
So I'm betting, based on what she just said there, that Ansley Einhart was talking about a case in late January. A group of migrants were caught on camera briefly punching and kicking two NYPD police officers in Times Square. 2 days later, after the attack, Yohan Boeda, a 22-year-old migrant, was photographed flipping his middle fingers to photographers as he walked out of a police station after he was arrested and released without bail. Fox News featured this image for weeks, and Donald J. Trump even included an image of Boeda in one of his campaign ads titled Joe Biden's Middle Finger. On March 1st, Yohan Boeda was cleared of any wrongdoing by the prosecutor. Boeda was mistaken for another man, Marcelino Este, who was ultimately charged and held on $15,000 cash bail. Boeda's case was widely reported on in local media outlets. Somehow, Einhart either didn't know he was cleared of any criminal charges or just didn't care. They have mentioned him before this clip, and it's driving me crazy because this was not a minor story in New York City. This was all over the local press that this guy was cleared of any wrongdoing, released. It was just the wrong guy. He was dressed similarly. That's how he got picked up. He didn't do anything wrong. Another man did. I'm sure other people probably implicated this other person because that's what tends to happen. Talk to any criminal justice or criminal defense attorney. They'll tell you, in most cases, unless you're dealing with like organized crime, you pick up one person, they're going to implicate other people who were there. That's just what they're going to do because they're trying to save themselves. Most criminals will immediately turn on each other. It's not like Law and Order. It's not like the movies. Unless you're dealing, again, like with actual organized crime where people will die for doing that. Most of the time, people immediately, especially when they're young, they immediately go, yeah, that guy was there. So since I'm about halfway through, I should give a shout out to my sponsor. And that sponsor would be listeners to this podcast and readers of my Substack channel. If you'd like to become a paid subscriber or paid supporter to Decoding Fox News, you can go to my Substack for Decoding Fox News or my Patreon for Decoding Fox News. Paid subscriptions start at $5 a month, and all paid subscribers get exclusive content. And I'm just going to very briefly talk about this. I already sent out sort of an email of sorts to paid subscribers about this and paid supporters on Patreon. But I'm doing a 2025 project that will be exclusive to paid supporters and paid subscribers only. Eventually, I will release some of it to the larger audience. I'm sort of working it out with the paid group first. And basically what I'm going to do is read through the entire thing in sections by chapter and add commentary in the whole 9 yards. So again, eventually that's going to be available for everybody, but I wanted to give the paid subscribers the first look at it. and to sort of get feedback from them in the whole 9 yards. So, because the Project 2025 is alarming. It's very alarming. Also, if you can't afford to become a paid subscriber or paid supporter to Decoding Fox News, the next best thing is to share the podcast, share the newsletter with your friends. If you accidentally forward it to me when you're trying to forward it to someone else, I might send a goofy response because I'm confused. That's happened a few times. I'm laughing, but it's because I'm always like, why is this person emailing me? And I can't figure it out. And I'm like, do you need help with something? And then they're like trying to forward it to a friend, and I look like an idiot. It happens. It happens. And it's not a big deal if you do that, and it's not a big deal if I answer in a weird way. It's all good. It's all good. I'm just happy you're forwarding anything. So I want to address something very quickly because more than one of you emailed me about this or contacted me in some way on Twitter or whatever. There was an article in the New York Times that basically described exactly what I do, but for reasons unknown to me, that journalist did not reach out to me at all. I did not hear from them at all or anybody from the New York Times. They did, however, I will say, they did talk to Aaron Rupar. He's got a much bigger following than I do. He has been doing this a lot longer than me. That I understand completely. Tip of the hat to Aaron Rupar. They also reached out to Ron Flopowski. I thought they downplayed the Midas Touch a little bit because the Midas Touch is like a force of nature at this point. It's so huge. Huge. The ratings they get online are just enormous. My main beef for the article, and I don't like picking on other journalists. I don't like getting in wars with people. This is certainly not that. I just felt that the journalist was trying so hard to do like both sides with it, and that he was talking about, media reporters like myself who take clips and show them, like, try to expose what media companies are doing, like Fox. In some cases, somebody might take a clip from MSNBC or take a clip from OAN or Newsmax or whatever and showcase, like, this is what's going on here. And then people use it for political purposes in some cases. I get it. My issue with it is that the both sidesism wasn't honest. That I felt like, I don't think the journalist realized that, but I felt like he should have investigated the right-wing groups that do this work a little bit more, because he would find that in some cases they're part of the problem. I'd say in many cases they're part of the problem. I'm not going to single out any group. I don't want to deal with the wrath of their lawyers or anything like that. But some of the, in one case, a poll that has been promoted on Fox for at least 2 years about Hunter Biden is produced by one of these companies that claims to do what I do, but on the right. So what's going on there? And they get money from billionaires. I don't get money from billionaires. Aaron Rupar doesn't get money from billionaires. I'm pretty sure the Midas Touch doesn't. I don't know anything about their funding, but I don't think they do. Where some of the groups on the right very much would not exist if not for the generosity of right-wing extremists who want to promote a narrative. So that was my beef for the article. Not that I was omitted. I'm going to get omitted all the time because I'm a newsroom of one. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm not related to anybody. And sadly, that is part of this industry. I'm obnoxious and I produce a lot of content, which is why I think Decoding Fox News has gotten to the point that it's gotten to. But anyway, just wanted to address that because several people emailed me about that. And all I can say is talk to the New York Times. Send them an email. It's hard being a Substack journalist because a lot of places just don't respect this type of publishing. They view it as like self-publishing, and so they just view it as like not relevant, even though a lot of us, not me, but a lot of the other Substacks accounts are now surpassing legacy media in terms of subscribers and an audience and the whole 9 yards. So I personally think this is the new revolution for media. I think niche media, targeted audiences, tiny micro budgets is the way things are going to end up. Not these huge mega, legacy companies with huge budgets and huge overhead. I think those days are kind of dying. But anyway, moving on. This next one's funny. I think it's funny. This is from Friday on the 5. Jesse Waters included a clip of Joe Biden walking across the tarmac to Marine One, which is the presidential helicopter. That's it. That's the whole clip. It was just Biden walking. Biden didn't trip. Biden didn't say anything. There was no vocal gaffe. There was no slip of the tongue. There was no forgotten thing or confused statement. He just was walking. He was an 81-year-old man walking like an 81-year-old man, and they tried to make this into a thing.
Fake alert. We just got another one of those unedited videos of the president acting like himself that drives the White House insane. Joe Biden seen shuffling at the speed of an elderly man with a poor memory as he gingerly makes his way across the tarmac to Camp David. Right now, he's holed up for the next several days with nothing else on his schedule except to cram like crazy for the CNN presidential debate. A lot is riding on the big guy.
So Jesse Watters was one of many Fox News personalities to criticize Joe Biden for preparing for a debate. Oh, yes. Criticize him for preparing for a debate. How dare he? Now, this is a clip from Trump from a rally in Vegas. Just thought I'd compare.
So there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards. Or here. Do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, you know, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats.
The craziest comes at the very, very end of that clip. We're going to end that, he says. We're going to end that for boats. What are you ending for boats, you madman? What are you ending for boats? Shark attacks? Electrocution in the ocean? Do you really think that's a thing? What is going on with your addled mind, you lunatic? He was at a rally, his teleprompters stopped working, and he was riffing. And I've seen that idiot talk. I'm saying idiot. I don't care. I have seen him talk about. I've seen him talk about the Panama Canal at length. I've seen him talk about water pressure at length. I've seen him get basic facts wrong about the Spanish flu, about when Roe v. Wade happened, and he just mutters on, just. Or Trump goes on rambling about stupid stories where people call him sir, when nobody's calling him sir. He says goofy, ridiculous things about his wife as if he refers to her as first lady, which of course he does not. Then he rambles on about the stupid election that he lost, that he refuses to admit that he lost, even though everyone has told him that he's lost. I can't take it anymore. He's a madman. And these people who view him, that addled mind, as some sort of savior to this country, and then mock an 81-year-old for walking like most 81-year-olds walk. When we had a president who got us through World War II, who was in a wheelchair at the time, who cares if he can't walk? I don't care if he can't walk. He can walk. He's 81. He has arthritis. If you live long enough, you'll probably get it. So shut up. I cannot take this. Is Joe Biden perfect? No. Is he going to make mistakes? Yes. Is it difficult to be a president at his age? Of course it is. But this is just getting ridiculous. An 81-year-old man walking, with a stiff gait is normal. I can't. It's so, this is where I start to lose my mind. And I admit this openly. I know some of you say you like it when I yell at them. So that one just came out of me. I was not anticipating it. That just came out of me. Here's another one. Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary, making a ridiculous comment about Joe Biden.
Sean, I'm shocked this debate is even happening. I really am stunned that the White House staff wants Joe Biden to appear on stage speaking extemporaneously, no teleprompter, no assistance from anybody for an hour and a half, even if he's sitting. It's just a surprise. So the pressure on Joe Biden to not flub, to not engage in some of those verbal mistakes that we have all seen, or to forget something. If I'm the anchor, if I'm Jake Tapper or Dana Bash, the moderators, here's what I'd do. I would pick up the Her report, and I'd say, he said that you don't remember the years you were vice president. Mr. President, what years were you vice president? Put it to him. Make Joe Biden answer the facts, address the questions. The Her report said he didn't remember the year Beau Biden died. Ask the president, what year did your son die? This is what journalists do. based on government information that's hard-hitting and factual. They pressed the politician in power. They should press Joe Biden. The American people, but White House is saying these are cheap fakes. The man is in great health. He can outrun the staff. Put it to the test.
So I just want to point out that the Her report also said that Joe Biden had a photographic memory. It did! Look it up, Ari Fleischer. And I would also say this. I have some questions for Donald J. Trump. Number one, how many grandchildren do you have? Name them by order of birth. Go. Donald J. Trump, find Missouri on a map. Donald J. Trump, here's a picture of E. Jean Carroll. Here's a picture of Marla Maples from a couple decades ago. Which one's your ex-wife? Ha ha! Donald J. Trump. I would just say, please locate Iraq and Iran on a map. They're next to each other. It's tricky. You can do it. Donald J. Trump, I would pay money. I said this years ago. I still want to see it. I want to see somebody take a blank map of the United States and say, Donald J. Trump, you've got 5 minutes. Put in the... Time him. Put in the names of every single state. Spell them correctly. Go. Do it. I could do it. I could do it in 3 minutes. I've done it. There's a quiz online. You have to spell them correctly, and I've done it. It's fun. I love that stuff. I can also do the entire European map. I would love to just list 5 countries in NATO. Just 5, you idiot. He couldn't do it. You know he couldn't do it. The man is dumb as bricks. He's good at selling stuff. He's P.T. Barnum, and he's a sociopath. And also, back to Ari Fleischer's stupid questions for Joe Biden. The American public does not care. They do not care that Joe Biden can't remember the name. I have had close, dear friends die, and I couldn't tell you the year that they died because I've blocked it out. I could tell you the day, couldn't tell you the year because I have blocked it out. My brain just goes no. One of my close friends died 10 years ago, and on the anniversary of her death, I checked her Facebook memorial page and went, oh my God, it's been 10 years. I had no idea it had been 10 years. To me, felt like 3 years ago. It felt like 2 years ago. It was 10 years ago. That's what our brains do to deal with trauma. And Trump got Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi flipped. He's flipped Joe Biden for Obama. He's flipped Obama for Hillary Clinton. It's just never ending. It just turns into one big crazy, I'm going to talk about water pressure and the Panama Canal. Are you? Okay. And sharks, electrocuted sharks. I'm going to talk about electrocuted sharks. This next clip is from Monday from Hannity. Newt Gingrich, who is a regular on Hannity and the Ingram Angle, talking about how Donald J. Trump should handle this upcoming presidential debate.
He will be aggressive, he'll be jacked up, and he'll go like crazy. And I just hope that Trump can stay very calm, very Reagan-like, let Biden be a fool, and just endure it and not counterattack.
I will tell you, it's very simple. They're going to go in with one strategy to piss off Donald Trump. He doesn't have to take the bait, for sure. All right, Newt Gingrich, great to see you.
So you could see how when I saw that clip, I was like, oh my goodness, what did you just say? What did you have either one of you met Donald J. Trump? Have you been in some type of chamber for years where you've had no realization of Trump? Like Hannity, you've interviewed this guy and you honestly think he can keep his calm and will not be baited? And why are either one of you comparing him to Ronald Reagan? Now, I grew up in the 80s. My father used to throw things at a television set when Ronald Reagan came on. This is a true story. My father is a union man. He could not stand Ronald Reagan. I'm not a fan of Ronald Reagan or his policies, mostly his policies. Not a fan. However, I would never put Ronald Reagan on any sort of similar plane than Donald J. Trump. Ronald Reagan wouldn't sell our secrets to a foreign country. I am not so sure Trump didn't or wouldn't. Ronald Reagan would not praise the dictator of North Korea. Ronald Reagan would not praise Vladimir Putin. Ronald Reagan would not worship Viktor Orban. He would view these men with scorn. Ronald Reagan, again, the entire Reagan Revolution, I think it profoundly changed our country in the ways we are still recovering from, may never recover from. I'm just not a fan, but I would never in a million years put those two men in the same category. No. I think Ronald Reagan would be horrified by Donald J. Trump. Okay, I'm getting all worked up again. Moving on. Just what are you talking? Like, not calm Trump. No. So on Fox, Friday, Fox and Friends, they had an expert on this woman named Lily Gil Valletta. She is a CEO of a company called Cultural Intel, a market research tech firm. And they described her as a data expert. And she gets something glaringly wrong in this clip. She's talking about the economy, and her perspective was supposed to be from a Hispanic woman. They use the term Hispanic. I would not. I would use the term Latina, but whatever. Hispanic woman's perspective.
Well, one thing to note is Hispanic households tend to be larger. We have on average 2 to 3 kids. So that inflation impact that we were just hearing about, when food inflation has risen a whooping 25% or more since 2020, you feel it in your pocket. So I think beyond politics, beyond personality, it's going to be about the pockets of American families. But you put on top of that, Ainsley, the fact that individual incomes and wages are declining. The inflation is outpacing the ability for people to just live and for women to be able to provide for their families.
Now, not everything she said was incorrect, but she said that income and wages are declining, and that is just demonstrably false. So I found several sources on this. I only included one in the newsletter just because there's no reason to include 3, but I could include 3, 4, 5 sources on this. So according to several sources, including the one that I picked was the Economic Policy Institute, wages have outpaced inflation for the past 12 months. Incomes are not declining, as Valletta stated. So that is just incorrect. And again, I found it on several sources. The joke was I included I included 3 sources in my video about it and still had MAGA people coming at me just saying I was wrong. And I'm like, could you give me a source? And they didn't. So this next clip is a quick comparison of how PBS and Fox News handled the same story. Now, on Fox, there were several segments about this, but I picked this one from Fox and Friends because it was actually the mildest, and I thought it'd be more interesting to compare that to, instead of somebody like very militantly screaming, to compare that to PBS. So they're kind of a similar tone, but they handle this completely differently. So this is from Thursday. The new law in Louisiana requires schools to display a poster-sized version of the 10 Commandments. And this goes all the way from kindergarten all the way up to state-funded universities. And they're supposed to display the 10 Commandments in every classroom, whatever. And this is Fox News talking about it from Thursday. And then I'm going to play how PBS talked about it.
I predict. But what's interesting about this particular case is Texas, South Carolina, and Utah all recently tried to pass similar things, but didn't have the same kind of particulars in it. And they did not pass the legislature. This passed the legislature.
You know, the interesting thing in Texas is, you know, it may not be in legislation, but some of the school districts, we have the 10 Commandments.
Where? You mean it's on display? In the school?
In the school. It's just part of the tradition. No one fought it because it's just part of a lot of the stuff that happens in the South.
What commandment are they against?
Right.
You know, I mean, just which one don't you like? I mean, which one would make your life worse if we adhere to it?
Exactly right.
Well, it's good for the children. I mean, I don't know how many students in high school are really going to sit there and read them if they see them on the wall, but it's a great reminder of our foundations, of American history, and just good Christian values.
Now that's Fox, and PBS invited on Charles Haynes of Freedom Forum, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting the First Amendment, to break this down. I think they did a much better job of it. This is just an excerpt of a much longer segment. I couldn't include the whole segment, but he sums it up pretty beautifully, I think. This is somebody who's dedicated his career, appears, to the First Amendment, so he knows it backwards and forwards.
That side says the Establishment Clause is why we have peace in this country. We have so many religious differences, and yet we have managed to negotiate them, live together, peaceful coexistence, mainly because we've kept the government out of the religion business. And what happens when the government has the power, like they're asking in Louisiana, to promote a religious message in every classroom. They call it a history message. But the Ten Commandments is, as the court said in 1980, read it. It's definitely a religious message.
One of the co-sponsors of the legislation said that the Ten Commandments, in her view, she views it as a historical document, and she says this might not work in California or New York, but in Louisiana, it does.
Well, it's popular, but the First Amendment isn't a popularity contest. It's meant to protect the conscience of every individual. And if there are only 10 people in Louisiana who don't want the Ten Commandments promoted, they have a right under the First Amendment to make their case. I think they might win still. Even a conservative court is going to think long and hard about wiping away barriers to government promoting religion to young kids. I mean, that just seems unthinkable.
Just as a quick refresher to any international listeners to this podcast, I know there's a few of you. Americans, we have a lot of flaws. Our founding fathers had a lot of flaws. Our country has a lot of problems. But the one thing our founding fathers got right, in my humble opinion, one piece of perfection from the Bill of Rights is the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. The first phrase in the amendment, Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. What part did you not understand, Louisiana legislatures, I should say? They're already being sued. There's already a lawsuit. And they're hoping that this conservative Supreme Court will back them up. That's what they're doing. This is a gamble. I think we've seen enough examples throughout history to prove that religion and government do not go well together. I am a non-believer, but I believe strongly that every human being in this country, if you want to practice whatever faith you want to practice, you should be able to do it, and the government should not force another religion upon you. 100%. Non-believers should also be left alone to be non-believers. Or people who are just agnostic, like myself. Agnostic just a shrug. I have no idea. However, government tends to corrupt religion. Religion tends to corrupt government. They should stay separate. Leave them alone. You don't want a, Baptist to be telling a Catholic how they should practice their faith. You don't want a Catholic telling a Jew. You don't want a Jew telling a Hindu telling a Muslim. Just leave it alone. Let people be. Stop forcing one faith down our throats. You really don't want that, even if you think you do, because it will tend to come and bite you. I have very strong feelings on this. You can probably tell. There's a couple things that get me very worked up. Freedom, the separation of church and state is one of them. Oh my goodness. I just cannot state this enough. Because what's next? Dress codes for people in Louisiana? That would be funny. In New Orleans, that'd be hilarious. What's next? You shut down all the businesses on Sunday? What's next? You decide things are graven images and start taking them down? When does this end? Leave government out of religion, leave religion out of government. Okay. Oh, I'm getting all worked up. Next up, before I do stories Fox News ignored, I'm going to mix it up. And here's a character who I think might be falling off the political stage soon. Who knows? She might end up on OAN. She might end up on Newsmax. I don't think she's going to end up on Fox. I think she's a little too crazy for Fox. And that's saying something. But here we go. I'm Carrie Lake, and you're fake news, and you're a liar, and I am the governor, senator, vice president. It doesn't matter if Trump doesn't pick me next week or whenever or at the convention. He really knows that deep down I'm his vice president. He just doesn't know it. And I will secretly be his vice president even if he doesn't pick me, because he really did want to pick me. He wanted to pick me because I'm the best. I'm the best vice president because the people want me. And I know they do, because I'm the governor of Arizona. I'm the duly elected governor of Arizona and the next senator of Arizona. And you can't stop me, because I believe in me and I am me. And that's it. You're fake news and you're a liar. Carrie Lake, ladies and gentlemen. Carrie Lake. Okay. So this next section is stories Fox News ignored. Every week I compare the hours I've watched on Fox News to 5 hours of the PBS NewsHour. The following list are stories that PBS covered that Fox News did not. Updates in the war in Ukraine. The U.S. said it would redirect missiles for air defense directly to Ukraine that were meant for other U.S. allies. National Security spokesman John Kirby said that the U.S. had taken the difficult but necessary decision to reprioritize near-term planned deliveries of foreign military sales to other countries. Russia said it shot down 114 Ukrainian drones during an attack where Ukraine claims it hit oil refineries and a drone launch site in southern Russia. The European Union has officially set a date to begin membership talks for Ukraine and Moldova. Negotiations will begin on Tuesday in Luxembourg, but the full process could take years or even decades. President Putin said that Russia would prioritize military production, including its nuclear program. Updates in the Israel-Hamas war. Armenia became the latest country to officially recognize Palestinian statehood, despite opposition from Israel. Roughly 3/4 of the 193 UN member nations have done so. Israel's military announced that it would pause fighting throughout daytime hours along a 7-mile route in southern Gaza to free up a backlog of humanitarian aid deliveries. Moving on to climate disasters. State media in China reported that at least 147 people have died amid catastrophic flooding and landslides in the south of the country. A week of downpours had walloped Guangdong province. One area saw more than 14 inches of rain in just a single day. A record 23 NATO countries will hit their military spending targets this year. Member countries have increased their military funding since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. The governor of Maryland signed an executive order that will issue 175,000 pardons for marijuana-related convictions. The pardons include more than 150,000 misdemeanor convictions for simple possession of cannabis and more than 18,000 misdemeanor convictions for use or possession with intent to use drug paraphernalia. A new birth control method for men entered Phase 2 trials. The testosterone combo gel was applied once daily to the shoulder blades of 222 men between the ages of 18 and 50. It reduces sperm count without affecting libido. 3 federal lawsuits in Republican states were filed last Monday to challenge the Biden administration's proposed changes to Title IX that would expand protections to LGBTQ+ students and add new safeguards for victims of sexual assault. More than 1,300 people died during this year's Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia as the faithful faced extreme high temperatures at Islamic holy sites in the Desert Kingdom. The U.S. said famine has likely descended in Sudan and warned attacks in the capital of the North Darfur region must stop. El Fasher was home to more than 800,000 internally displaced before it came under siege by rebel paramilitaries. An investigation by High Country News found some land-grant universities have long profited from land essentially taken from Native American tribes and leased to industries like oil and gas. Roughly 10.7 million acres were taken from nearly 250 tribes. Families of some of the people who died in 2 Boeing 737 MAX crashes are asking federal officials to fine Boeing $24.8 billion and move quickly to prosecute the company on a criminal charge that was set aside 3 years ago. A Russian court sentenced an American soldier to 3 years and 9 months in prison for stealing and making threats of murder. Staff Sergeant Gordon Black, 34, entered Russia to see his girlfriend and was arrested last month after she accused him of stealing from her. Crew members from the cargo ship that struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing its collapse, were allowed to return to their home countries after waiting for 3 months during the investigation into the accident. The FDA approved the first menthol e-cigarette for adult use. PBS produced a segment that explored how Muslims in India have suffered under the Modi administration. The U.S. paused safety inspections for avocados and mangoes from top-producing Mexican state after a security incident involving U.S. Department of Agricultural staff. A Nevada judge dismissed a case against 6 Republicans in a scheme that included false electors that would have falsely declared Donald J. Trump as the winner of the 2020 election in that state. The judge ruled that Las Vegas was the wrong venue for the case. Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford said his office will take the case up with the state Supreme Court. A Russian-American woman's trial for treason began in Russia after she allegedly donated $50 to a Ukraine charity. She was arrested in Russia while visiting family in February. PBS included a segment about how Donald J. Trump might lie about the outcome of the 2024 election as he did in 2020. Right-wing media outlets, including Fox News, are already showing signs that would support Trump's false claims. In this segment, PBS featured a clip that Decoding Fox News posted on social media that went viral last week, where Greg Gutfeld promoted the idea, regardless of the outcome, Americans won't believe the results of the 2020 election. Now, that could have been a coincidence. PBS also watches Fox, or they could have seen my clip. I don't know. The Washington Post is again looking for a top editor after Robert Winnett, the British journalist set to take the position, withdrew over ethics concerns. It comes after a year marked by staff cuts, a high-profile resignation, and mounting red ink. As stated earlier, Fox News did not report on a SCOTUS decision, that's a Supreme Court decision, that involved upholding a law that removes gun rights from domestic violence abusers. By the numbers, it's a lot of stories. It's a lot of them. By the numbers, here we go. This is where I compare the top 5 stories on Fox News to the top 5 stories on the PBS NewsHour, starting with Fox. 30%, Biden bashing. 21%, border crisis, but specifically migrant crime. 16%, just general promotion of Trump. 2%, Democratic cities and states are hell. That's a category I kind of came up with. And 2%, social media is dangerous. PBS NewsHour, top 5 topics for the week ending June 23rd, 2024. Author profiles, it's people promoting their books, 10%. 7% was Biden versus Trump. That's basically the presidential election coming up. 4%, Israel-Hamas war. 4%, the SCOTUS domestic violence abusers can be barred from owning guns case. And 4%, extreme weather. Words used on Fox for the week ending June 23rd, 2024. Biden, 572. Trump, 469. Border, 202. Migrant, 112. Crime, 110. Poll, 80. Inflation, 42. Economy, 30. Israel, only 20. China, 19. Hunter, as in Hunter Biden, dropped all the way down to 16. Hillary, 9. Ukraine, 9. And AOC, 4. So that's the podcast for the week. If you would like to check out, I'll probably have a bonus one for the debate. We'll see how that goes. I am white-knuckled already about it. If you would like to check out more of my work from Decoding Fox News, you can go to Twitter, also known as X. I call it Twitter. Threads, Instagram. My Facebook has a fan page called Juliet Jeske fan page. You can also go to my YouTube channel for Juliet Jeske. And I'm also on Blue Sky. TikTok and Blue Sky are also Decoding Fox News. If you'd like to become a paid subscriber to Decoding Fox News, please go to my Substack. I always need new subscribers because I always lose subscribers. It happens. Not like a lot, but it happens. Enough that I have to constantly keep growing or I die. Also go to my Patreon for Decoding Fox News. And my mascots for the podcast, Odin and Thor. One's a tiny tuxedo cat named Thor. One's a long, skinny black cat named Odin. Send their love. And if you'd like to check out, there's a version of this podcast that's available on the Resolute Square YouTube channel. They are the media company affiliated with the Lincoln Project. It's very much a loose partnership. I'm not paid by the Lincoln Project in any way, shape, or form. Just wanted to clarify that if anybody thinks I am. I am truthful when I say 100% of my funding comes from subscribers to this podcast and subscribers on my Substack channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next podcast.
Resolute Square.